Hello everyone. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. PL, I see you in the chat already. Happy Father's Day to everyone who is a father and celebrating Father's Day. I hope today is as good as it deserves to be for you. My name is Brittany Lewis. I am a graphic designer and illustrator and tarot deck enthusiast. And Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And today is no exception to that. So we're picking back up with the Four of Cups. I've made a little bit of progress and a few changes from our last episode. So we'll get into all of that and we'll start adding some details to this bad boy. Before we get into what we're going to get into, if you would like to support myself as an artist, if you would like to support this stream, if you just enjoy watching me talk about the thing that I love to talk about every Sunday, please do me a huge favor and hit the like button. That helps me out a lot. I used to think it didn't when I would hear people say to hit the like button, but it absolutely helps out a whole lot because that lets YouTube know that you appreciate the content, that you like the content, and that you think that people that like the things that you like will also like the content as well. So please do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Other ways that you can support me is by shopping at my website blewisarts.com, or you can book me for your project if you have something that you think I would be a great fit for. I would love to work with you on that project. I would love to hear more about you and the things that you enjoy and all of those wonderful things. So please do that. All of the links for that will be down in the description. Hey, Draw Sketchbook, I see you in the chat as well. I'm happy to have both of you guys here. So if I don't see you in the chat, I'd love to know that you're here. So if you're watching, please let me know. Just say hey. I like to shout you out for a quick bit. All right, so we're on the Four of Cups. All right, so last week where we left off, I was actually I think we worked a little bit on drawing the armor for our male character. I didn't really like it. We even laid in flats. I ain't like that as well. So I just took all of that out. I erased it all. In terms of like the flats and the armor that we had I had drawn in on that live stream for this male character, and I went in and redrew it. So this is what we're looking at now. We are looking at just sort of my drawing on top of and adding details to the character. Now again, I did use the 3D models, and we'll have a look at that because it's going to come in handy for placing light and shadow, because I set that up in a way that will allow me to just use my reference. I created a reference, so it'll allow me to use that. But I did draw in some armor, and I wanted it to be pretty close to the Knight of Cups for the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So not quite exact, but similar enough. I did put in flats. So I'll show you in just a bit what that looks like. But I pretty much took the 3D model and I drew on top of him, right? I gave him the armor. I gave him a bow staff. He has his own bow, the whole nine. I really like how this turned out. So what I'm going to do, I have all of my sketch material, all of the items that I want to draw on top of in a folder called Sketches. I changed that over to Multiply. We're going to lower the opacity on that so that when we add color, which I've done in terms of flats, when we start to add details, the sketches won't become distracting, right? So sometimes we can get a little bit of a false read from the sketches because, of course, the sketch looks exactly how we want it to look. But because I don't use line art in my work, it can be a little bit of a distraction. So I like to be able to change it or like lower the opacity so that I can kind of see what I'm doing. All right. So when laying in flats, the way that I work and the way that I approach each image is to work from the back forward in terms of laying down base colors. And I arrange all of my layers in that way so that whatever I'm drawing isn't sort of in the wrong order, right? So I wouldn't draw the tree on top of the woman because I want to see the woman and not so much the tree in the foreground, right? So I order my layers in that way and I create my flats in that way. Now I do have, I'm going to turn these on now. So I do have some base colors. These are not perfect and these will very likely change as we go, but they'll give us a good read and a good idea of what it is that we're wanting to do. And what you'll notice is that with her clothes, now this isn't colored in the most beautiful, perfect way, right? It's all outside of the lines, but because of the way that I order my layers, it won't matter, right? So the things that I have on top of it will cover that up, but it'll kind of give me a baseline bit of information so that if I select this area and I have a little bit of a bleed outside of the sort of the lines, right, it'll kind of help me keep things as clean as possible. It won't be these weird like gaps between colors. So that's the way that I work that out. And again, I just ordered this in from the backmost part of this image forward, right? And when I was setting the tone for my main character, I wanted him to be a lot more saturated, a lot more bright and vivid than our female character because he's closer to the camera. So today we're going to pick an area in this image to start working, right? In the beginning, I feel like all art sort of goes through an ugly phase, right? Where it's not perfect, it's not necessarily where we want it to be, but it'll get there, right? We'll keep working on it until we're satisfied. So today I just want to start that, right? We're going to start the ugly phase today. We're going to begin to add some details to this image. And I think I wanted initially to start with the armor, but I think I'm going to start with the main character. I think, child, I don't know. I guess I could. We'll start with our main character. We'll get some details in her. So this is our Knight of Cups in my reference panel here. This is sort of the guy that I modeled this beautiful hunky man after, and did his armor somewhat similar too. So when it comes time for us to begin to draw in and paint in details for the armor, I'll be referring back to this particular image, and this again is the Knight of Cups from this particular project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So what I'm looking for in my reference panel is this image here. So when I was creating the composition, of course, I had in mind what I wanted to do, right? And so we went through the process of gathering or creating the 3D models. And in those 3D models, I was able to pose them as close to what I was looking for as possible, right? And because I knew that I wanted to have a tree in the scene, and I knew that I wanted to place them in a forest, I found an image that fit pretty close to what I was going for. Now, the tree, I drew pretty close to it, but I did give a little bit of difference because I do want it to twist a little bit, and I want it to be pretty gnarly. So I have other tree references to help me create that. So I don't necessarily have to rely on one particular reference. I can mishmash and or mix and match, and I can puzzle piece and jigsaw together different references in order to get the image that I'm after. And even then, I allow myself room to be creative as possible, to have a happy accidents, and I'm not so rigid on the specific idea, because if it's time to pivot, then we have to be comfortable in the pivot, right? But I do have my baseline idea, so I was able to set up my 3D models. I got the lighting pretty well done with the 3D models, and I'll show you that again what it looks like. With these 3D models, you're actually able to adjust the lighting for each of the characters, so that helps as well. Now, they do have default lighting, so they do have a certain way that they're lit, and so you can place them any which way, but the lighting may not be consistent. When you're setting up your 3D models, you actually have the power to be able to say, okay, I want my light source to be a right or left. This is my left side, so on the left side, right? So I want the light source to be on my left side, so you can create that within your 3D models. You can have it neutrally lit, which is something sort of what I was going for, a neutrally lit scene, because it's going to be pretty much in a jungle. But if I were to create, if I were to click, for instance, on my female character, what that will allow me to do is, and I'll show you as soon as it loads up, I can actually change the lighting, right? So I can go into, let me make sure because it's a large file. So I can go into the settings, which is this little wrench tool. I can click on it, and then I can go over to light source, right? So if I move this ball around, imagine the whitest part is where the light hits the most, right? So the lightest part is where the light hits the most, and then down below is the shadow. So I wanted the shadow to somewhat be behind her, but if I move this around, right? Hopefully it'll move for me. There we go. If I move this around, it'll allow me to adjust where the lights and shadows fall. So that's really helpful when I'm setting up a scene, right? All right, so let's get out of that. I don't want to save this because I do want to be able to come back and tweak it if I need to. So we're not going to save that, but we're going to close it. So that's pretty much what I did. I set up my lighting for this particular scenario. And so that gives me a great indication of where to hit the light, where to hit the shadows, where her body bends. All of that information is there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into her skin. I think I want to start with her. If not, we'll move around. We'll see how this goes. But what I'm going to do is select my layer that I labeled woman skin, right? So each of my layers I like to label because that helps me stay organized, because otherwise I'll have like 50,000 layers and I'm clicking through them to try to figure out what, information is on what layer. So to help me mitigate all of that and to sort of save myself time, the way that I navigate that is to label them, right? Make your life a lot easier. You want to work smarter and not harder. Now, of course, with our 3D models, because I'm using Clip Studio Paint version 1, I do not get facial features. So I had to plug all of that in, but it does give me indication based on where we placed our lighting as to where sort of different things hit, right? So we know where her nose is, we know how her mouth is sort of hidden in shadow, and we can see that the right side of her face is somewhat hidden in shadow. So that's pretty helpful. We were able to add in the rest of the details based on the lines that were provided within our 3D model. So from here, All I've done so far is hit control on my keyboard. I'm working on a Mac computer, but I have a Windows keyboard. So I hit the Windows button, which would be control on an Apple keyboard. And I just clicked on the layer that I want to work on. That way I highlight only the parts that I want to add color to. All right. So when I am approaching something like this, the way that I would do this is to first put in all of my shadow colors, right? Now with shadows, we want to go somewhat more saturated than our main color, but we don't necessarily want to go too far away from it. Now a lot of times what I'll see with people who create shadows is they'll go sort of straight to black or straight to blue. You kind of want to find that happy balance, right? So we're going to select our color, and then I'm just going to go darker, but I'm also going to go a little more saturated. And if I want to, I can give it even a little more of a red tone, and that'll give us some dimension in our shadows. And if it's too much, we can always dial it back. So from here, I'm going to grab my brush, and I work with just basic, a basic round brush, nothing too fancy for this particular step in the process. When it is time for me to add details and add textures, then I'll go into some of my specialty brushes. I want to make sure my brush is selected, because every time I hit B there, okay, there we go. Every time I hit B, it wanted to go back to the other option. All right, so based on our 3D model here, and this is the wrong color, so let's do this. Let's select our flesh tone. We're going to darken it up. We're going to make it a little more saturated. Uh-oh. Like so, like this, and I do want it to be a little bit redder, something like that. And I'm going to slow down because I think my computer is lagging just a bit, so I want to make sure I get the right color. There we go. All right, so I want to lay in my shadows. Now this does actually seem a little bit darker than what I would like, so what I could do is just adjust it a bit. We'll bring it up just a bit, because I don't want to go heavily dark just yet. I just want to lay in the idea that all of this information here is in shadow, sort of her eyes a little bit, like so. And we're just using our 3D model as a blueprint, right? So that and I actually want to do this on a separate layer. So before we get too deep, I'm going to add a new layer. That way I don't mess up anything I don't want to mess up. There we go. And we'll label that in just a bit, but we'll just sort of follow our guidelines, right? So we'll go here. So even if this is too red, we can adjust it a little bit later. But what I want to do is just sort of put in, following my 3D model, right? Put in those shadows, because I know this is where the shadows fall on her body, right? She has a little bit of a shadow here. She has a shadow within her neck here, right? She has a little bit of shadow in this part of her arm, but not so much here. So we'll sort of dial that back, and we're just placing, I just like to place in shadows. This sort of helps me. I don't know why I do shadows first. It just is what feels best for me. So as you create your work, if you're an artist or an aspiring artist, just do what feels best for you, right? But don't be afraid to experiment, and don't be afraid for it to look ugly, right? Because we're not reaching for perfection right out the gate. We just sort of want to sort of start our blueprint, right? And then we'll work on it as much as we need to, until we're satisfied and happy with it. So she has a little bit of a shadow here, but not so much in her stomach area. This is a little bit lighter just because of how the light hits her. And then she has a bit under her foot, like so. So when I'm working on digital work, what am I doing? When I'm working on digital art, I'm not using a whole lot of brushes, right? Unless they're absolutely necessary. I like to use a round brush, or a somewhat hard round brush. This is one that I got from the artist Eric Anthony. He also has a YouTube channel, I believe, where he does portraits and things like that. But the brushes I purchased from his Gumroad. I don't recall if they were offered for free and you can just like purchase or like leave a donation if you like. I believe that's how it's set up. I know that's how Devin Kurtz's brushes are set up. So if you like this particular brush, if you like the style that I'm able to achieve with this is my main brush. This is called Hotline. It's just a regular old round brush, nothing fancy or anything like that. I do enjoy it, and it gives me the results that I want, right? And I have buku brushes. I have brushes for everything, but I generally work within this particular hot round brush. I do use a textured brush, which is a dry, it's called opaque, so I'll show you what that looks like. It's called Opaque 2, and I believe this is one that was default to Clip Studio. I don't recall purchasing this particular brush, but I'll just show you what the texture of it looks like. So if I were to, anyone wants to think about it for a second, if I were to draw, it does have a little more texture. And I use this brush a lot for a lot of different textures. So I use it for hair. I'll use it in the Knight's Armor. So I'll show you just a bit as soon as it auto saves what that looks like. I use it a lot, and I am able to achieve a lot of different things with this one opaque brush, right? I also have some cloud brushes and some grass brushes and all of those things. Because this is a forest scene, we'll get into some of that. But let me show you. So we have a bit of a chalky brush, right? So anytime I need like a texture, this is the brush, this is the sort of the go-to brush that I like to go with. All right, but mainly I like to use these hotline brushes. So anywhere on my screen where you see this ID, this is from Eric Anthony. This is his stuff, right? So I get his brushes. I really enjoy them. They work well. Clip Studio Paint, I find works really well. Y'all hear me talk about Clip Studio all the time. I am a Clip Studio fan, right? I like it because it's a perpetual license, so I'm not paying for a subscription. They do have a subscription model for some versions of Clip Studio. So for instance, I believe the iPad version is a subscription. So if you are using it on an iPad, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's sort of how it works. I use this on, again, like a desktop. So what I'm doing now is I'm sort of cooling off this red because I think it's a little bit too red. I am cooling off the shadow just a bit. But yeah, I like Clip Studio. It's a one-time thing. I have not upgraded Clip Studio. I have thought about it though. There are 4 versions of Clip Studio Paint right now. And the reason that I would update if I were to would probably be for the 3D models. I do enjoy them. Now they have these things where if I draw this character and I maybe want to move her arm, they have like anchors where you can articulate the arm even after you've drawn it. So I think that's real nice. Right? So I think that would be pretty handy. But through and through, I think it works pretty well, right? So I would highly recommend it if you are working specifically on a desktop. I have not used the iPad version. I do have like Procreate on iPad. I am not a Procreate person. I don't know why. I don't know if I have the patience for learning a new software in terms of like the shortcuts and things like that. So one of these days, maybe I'll give it another go. But I don't really use Procreate for much other than sketching and things like that. I do sketch a lot of like logos in Procreate, but that's about as far as it goes with me. But I've seen some wonderful, wonderful art come out of Procreate. So one of these days I'll give it a go. One of these days, we'll see. I really should. But for right now, Clip Studio is serving its purpose, and I enjoy it. So I'm just sort of going back over these areas, and what I'm doing is sort of going between colors. So I do have my shadow. So now it looks more like a 5 o'clock shadow. So I'm going to play with this color a bit, right? It's a little too gray for my liking, so I'm going to add some saturation to it. Again, go back just a bit red, and over at the top of the screen there is my color slider. I use hue, saturation, and value. You can go between RGB, you can do CMYK, which is great for print, but I'm going to be working in hue, saturation, and value because depending on, well, I guess it really doesn't matter whether or not I'm working for print or RGB, so for digital online stuff, if I can change the hue, saturation, and value, it gets pretty close no matter the application, right? So I do appreciate that a little bit more than I do the different color scales. So this works out for me. So again, I'm just sort of tweaking it, right? Tweaking my color values because I didn't like how they look like a 5 o'clock shadow. But what is happening, which is really nice, is that we still see some of the colors from the different versions of this shadow that I'm laying in, and that works out really nicely, right? So we're allowing myself to have, again, these happy accidents. Now I have her leg, sort of this leg shadow coming down, because as I'm looking at my 3D model, it looks like her leg sort of comes into her arm a little bit more than what I have drawn. So I'm just going to add that there, and if I need to tweak it a little bit later, I can. So the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, for those of you who are new here and have not heard about this project, first of all, welcome. So whether you're watching this live or the replay, I really appreciate you for being here. The Cosmic Gateways Tarot is a project that I started in 2019. I did my first card November, like mid-November 2019. And then I think I did 2, and then life happened, and then I picked it back up in January. In 2020, I made quite a bit of progress 2020, so most of the people who have been watching this have been watching it since about 2020. In terms of like the process, not the process, but like the progress of me posting cards and things like that. I'm not gonna say was, this is very much a dream project. This is something that I have been wanting to do for a really, really long time. It was something that I was afraid to sort of jump into because I didn't know anyone who was creating, who had done anything like this, right? And that happens. Sometimes we have these goals and things like that, and we may not know anyone who is doing the thing that we want to do. Sometimes you just have to sort of jump out there and do it and be the person, right? Sometimes it has to be you that does it. And so that's sort of the way that it has been for me. Now, when I was doing it, I remember reaching out to other deck creators and sort of trying to get tips and tricks and a little help. And they didn't know me, so a lot of it got ignored. Some of it may not have even been seen. You go through all of that. Sometimes you run into people who get gatekeep and don't necessarily want to share information. To me, that's in this application, that's kind of silly, right? So if there's any way that I can help anyone who is after the same goal, who is wanting to create a deck, I'm more than happy to share the things that I've learned along the progress or along my time of creating this particular project. It is definitely a labor of love, right? Because this is something that I'm pretty much taking a gamble on. I do believe that it will find its audience, as it has already. You guys are a testament to that. Those of you who are watching me create this live, just being here, is a testament to being able to find people that connect to the things that you want to connect to. So sometimes it's not so much important to have people around you who are doing the thing that you want to do. Of course, that can very much be helpful, right? But sometimes you'll attract the people, right? Sometimes you'll bring people to you who are into the same things, who like digital art or who like tarot cards or who like, watching people create and work within their dreams and to sort of go after it. And you'll attract those types of people, right? And that has been something that I am so humbled and so proud to be able to say that I've been able to do, because I was very much very shy, not shy, I won't say shy. I was very reserved in terms and really scared. Let's just put it out there. I was very, very afraid to show this part of my interest because I had put out a certain type of art for so many years, right? I was very much into fan art, and I still do fan art from time to time if I like something enough, right? Most of the fan art was very much a reflection of the things that I liked, the things that I grew up with, so a lot of it was nostalgia based, and I had my own lane with it, right? So I would take things like Steven Universe. I would make my the gems human, like have human features and look like real people, right? I would do things like that. I would draw characters from my favorite 80s movies, all of that, right? So I did have a lane in terms of fan art, and I think fan art is an easy sell because it is something that most people are familiar with. It's easy to find an audience with that type of thing. But what was happening with me in fan art was that I was feeling like these are properties that already exist, right? These things are the reflections of someone else's imagination. And though I am showing my appreciation to those things by recreating them in my own style, and surely it does speak to some part of me because I enjoy this stuff and I'm putting it out there, right? Because I think all art is a reflection of the artist. It wasn't super true to me, not completely, right? And so I was really wanting to take a gamble and express myself differently, right? And so I would put out little things. I think I did the witches the coven, right? I think in 2017 during Inktober I did sort of a sketchtober because child, I can't keep up with Inktober, but I did sort of a sketchtober where I created these witches and every day it was a new one and they were based on different things. And I still work on that project from time to time because eventually I would like to create a coloring book for it. But I created that. I was like, okay, let me throw this out there, right? Or I would do like a siren or different sort of original characters, and I would just kind of throw them out there. And then I'd be back to my fan art, or I'd be back to commissions, which I love sharing commissions because I love doing portraits and things like that. But I still wasn't necessarily like fully committed to, putting out the artwork that I was wanting to put out. And so with that disillusionment, right, that sort of, okay, I know there's more that I would like to create, but I'm afraid to do it. I'm afraid of what the audience that I've already culminated will say about it because I do a lot of conventions and things like that. So, you build a crowd around you, right? I was real afraid. But I was like, you know what? I can't keep I can't keep not putting it out because I want to, right? It's what sort of feeds me. It is what I feel the most free and creative doing. So let me just try it. So 2019, I posted my very first card that was the High Priestess. And the High Priestess was intended to be the Chariot. It didn't work out. So I learned to pivot extremely early in the process of creating this deck. The Chariot turned into the High Priestess because I wasn't able to articulate the idea that I had. I might revisit it because I still have to create the Chariot, right? So I might revisit it. But I was nervous. I was really afraid to share that part of the process. But eventually I got over it, right? And you know, of course you'll lose followers and you'll lose people and things like that, but you'll attract the people that are more aligned to what it is that you want to do, what the message is that you want to share. And so that's pretty much what happened, and it's steady growing. So again, if you're watching this live or the replay, and I know I'm talking 90 miles an hour, first of all, again, I appreciate you so much for being here on this Sunday afternoon, because you could be doing anything in the world, but you are watching me sit here and talk 90 miles an hour about the things that I absolutely love. But more importantly, if there's something that you want to go for, and I know a lot of times fear drives us, right? Fear drives us in ways that we don't necessarily expect it to drive us, but it does. And it shows up a lot of time as procrastination, right? It shows up a lot of times as a lack of discipline. But once you sort of get over that, once you realize that nobody knows what nobody knows what we're doing. Nobody knows. I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I'm sure my folks didn't know what they were doing. Nobody knows what they're doing, right? So once you sort of get to that level of understanding and that level of awareness, and you just, you know, are tired of living through the same thing over and over again, and you really want to achieve something new, go after it, right? You have to. Otherwise, life will pass you by before you know it. If you hadn't reached 40 yet, you get to 40 and you're like, man, I don't know what the heck I did with my life. Or you get to 50 and you're like, I don't know what I did with my life. Or you get to 60 and you're like, I don't know where time went, right? So no matter how old you are, just sort of go after it. I don't feel like you're ever too old to learn a new skill. I don't feel like you're ever too old to sort of try something new and to pivot and to do something that you absolutely love. So here we are, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, almost 6 years later. Yes, it has taken me 6 years to finish this project. And that's for a number of reasons, right? Life happens. But you have to bet on yourself, right? So Cosmic Gateways Tarot will be about 78 cards when it's all done. Now, I am one card away from being halfway done. So it's either going to be this one or it'll be the Four of Pentacles, which I work on Wednesdays, and I'm just about done with it. I'll show you that in a minute. Actually, let me show you that now. So I'm just about done with the Four of Pentacles. I was aiming for finishing it up last Wednesday during the Bring Your Own Project stream, which is really nice because I don't do any talking in that. It's just us working and co-working and drawing together and listening to music, which is real nice. I get a lot of work done in that. I typically lately have been going about 2 hours or so, but I'll show you sort of what that card looks like and the progress that I've made and what I have left to work on it. So that'll be, if I finish that one before this one, then that'll be the halfway mark. So I'll have 39 cards left to do, which is nice. It took me a long time to get here, but what I will say is now that I'm in the majors, it's coming along a lot faster. So this is our Four of Pentacles. Now, I don't know yet how I'm feeling about him. I kind of like him. Like, I dig him. He got his grill. He got his Star Trek visor on because I love Star Trek, because why not? He has all the money, right? He has all the coins, so he gets to spend money on what he wants to spend money on. The concept of this card typically to me reads as a greed card. I see this say this a lot as I'm deciphering this card. Now I'll go through and show you what the original one looks like. Now in the original card, to me, he looks a little less confident. The original Rider-Waite-Smith version of this card, he looks a little less confident, but he's also showing off his coins. He has his coins on his crown. He has his coins covering his throat and his heart chakra, so his midsection, and he also has the coins underneath his feet. So he's not hiding his money, right? It's showing off, especially if sitting on top of his crown. So he's showing off his money, but he's not necessarily sharing it. It has a very this is all mine, right? To me, it just reads as a greed card. I got me, right? So this is the concept that I'm going for with this particular image. He has himself. He ain't worried about nobody else. He gonna shine. He gonna show you he got the money, but he's not necessarily willing to share it. He just doesn't want to, right? So I have left on this, I have to place the fourth pentacle underneath his foot. I also have to give him some shoes. Now I don't know much about men's wear, so I have no idea what color shoe to give him. So if you have a suggestion, I would love to I would love to hear it, because I don't know yet. But I have to do his shoes, and I have to do the background. I have an idea of what I want to do for like the foremost part of the background, but not so much what I want to do with the backside. The original shows like a city in the background. I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know what environment I want to put him in, if any at all. I don't know what if I want to have him just sort of sitting out in the middle of a field by himself, because our original character is a little bit isolated, and that shows up a lot in the fours of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It shows up with this one that we're working on with the Four of Cups. And I'll show you the original one of that as well. And it also shows up with the Four of Swords. Not so much with the Four of Wands. That one deals more with like marriage and celebration and community. Very similar to the energy of the threes. But the rest of the other three of the fours in the tarot are pretty isolated cards, right? So each of the people, each of the characters are isolated. They're sort of in their own world, doing their own thing. And so that is something that I want to... that I may, play up a little bit with this particular card. I'm not really sure yet, but that is the Four of Pentacles, and I work on him on Wednesdays, right? So if he gets done before before the Four of Cups is done, then that'll be halfway. So I'm really excited. So it's thinking about it. So while my computer is sort of sorting through its own thing, let me show you guys what the Cosmic Airways Tarot looks like. So these are most of the cards. So there's not all of them, but this is most of the cards that we've completed over the years since 2019. All of the majors have the alchemy symbols for their elements, either on the foreheads or like somewhere in the middle of the image, right? And so that sort of sets them apart. Of course, our major arcana cards deal with archetypes. So these images aren't necessarily as story driven as the minor arcanas are, but I feel like the energy of them is a little bit stronger, because the minor arcanas are minor arcana cards, meaning the cups, the wands, the swords, and the pentacles all deal with mundane everyday situations. That kind of gives me the ability to dive into visual storytelling a little bit more. Now I ain't saying that my majors are like slouches, because they're beautiful cards. Of them, I have 4 more to do. So I have to do the Chariot still, even though that was the first card I started with. For whatever reason, I cannot figure out what to do about the Chariot. I cannot figure out what to do about the sun, the moon, or the star. And all 4 of those cards at some point I sort of have worked on. I have visualized some concept for them, but I wasn't necessarily happy with them, so I just kind of put them off to the side. In terms of the minor arcana cards, I'm just sort of at this point going in sequence. I have all of the court cards done except for the kings. I have not done the kings yet, so I have all of my pages, all of my knights, all of my queens done, and then I have not done the aces, but we've done the 2s, and we just finished the 3s. Now we're in the 4s, right? So the way that I tackle this particular project that helps me out a whole lot is to design in batches, and that seems to be real helpful. Designing in batches, because that allows me to plan them at one time, and then I can just approach each card as it comes up. When I was doing the queens, and I think the queens and knights and the pages, the way that I did those, before I even started coloring anything, I would actually sketch each card, right? So with these, the 4s, or the 3s and the 4s, I think even the 2s. Have I done the 2s? Yeah, I did the 2s too. So even with those, what we would do is go through the developmental process, and then I would just sort of sketch each card as I was working on them. But with the court cards, I sketched all of them at one time and just picked one up and started drawing on it. So that was super helpful. I don't necessarily have that much time now, so I just sort of take it, do my thumbnails, and sort of draw them as they come up. I do not yet have a solid thumbnail. I have a thumbnail sort of for the 4 of Wands, but not necessarily for the 4 of Swords. But my image of what I want the 4 of Swords is clearer in my mind than the 4 of Wands. So whenever I finish one of these 2 cards, that'll probably be the next one that I start on. So we'll either dive into that one during our Sunday streams, or I'll just work on it during the Wednesday streams, right? So doubling them up has definitely been helpful in this process, because I was able to sort of knock out 2 cards in 2 weeks, or 2 or 3 weeks, with the last 2 that we worked on. So that's been really nice. All right, so zooming out again, the 4s to me have a lot of isolated people in them, right? So everybody's pretty isolated except for the Four of Wands, which deals with, we usually associate that one with marriage and things like that. So when I get to the point of designing that particular card, like I want it to be really beautiful with lots of flowers. So I know it's going to take me a minute to actually finish rendering. This one might too, but I really want that one to be just a very beautiful card. This one, instead of using the hand from the Ace of Cups with the Four of Cups in our reference panel here, instead of using just a random hand in a cloud, which does connect to our Ace of Cups, so it does have significance, I actually wanted to just sort of give a body to that hand. So with the Ace of Cups, think new relationships, new offers, and things like that. I actually wanted to give more story to that, right? So that comes up a whole lot when I am designing and sort of approaching each one of these cards, especially again with the minors, because these are mundane situations. This is just everyday life, right? So I wanted to it gives me a lot more wiggle room and a lot more opportunity to play and to come up with actual stories. So in my mind, as I am creating the Four of Cups, to me, this woman is sort of focused on her three bowls, right? Her three singing bowls. She is focused on what is in front of her, right? She's not necessarily paying attention to anything except for what's in front of her. Now, I wanted to give her a somewhat bored and detached expression, so hopefully I'll capture that. If not, we'll get as close as we can. No worries there. But I wanted to give her a sort of bored look, right? So that's, to me, emphasized in her posture. So she's sort of leaning on her knee. She's just in her own world, right? She ain't paying nobody no attention. And here comes this beautiful man, right? In his armor, you know, he's barefoot, she's barefoot, but she's barely clothed, so she's sort of just in this situation, present in this situation, right? She's a little bit dissociated from the world, but here he come, right? Here he come with an offer and a whole new bowl. Now this bowl is different from the bowls that she has. This one here is a metal singing bowl. This is not a quartz singing bowl. This is a metal one, and it might have a little something to drink in it, right? So maybe he's offering her a new opportunity. Maybe he's offering her a new relationship. Now we can read this a couple of ways, and as you play with these cards, you can read it however you want to read it. Whatever you see in this card is totally okay. I welcome it, and I would love to hear about it. But maybe she's not paying him any attention, but maybe he has all the answers, right? Or maybe he doesn't have all the answers. She see him out the corner of her eye, but she don't have time for that, right? Whatever the scenario is, being able to sort of come up with these stories for each of the images is a lot of fun, and I think it gives a lot of heart to the card. So I'm not just copying the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot or the Tarot de Marseille or the Thoth Tarot or anything like that. I'm sort of coming up with my own scenario. So the key, though, is I want to be able to create something that's easy to read and also easy for people to find their own interpretations in. So if you're reading this intuitively and you're saying that she's not paying him any attention, but she's offering, you might see something completely different from what I've intended, right? So as I explain these cards, I don't necessarily want to give too much, because I do want to leave room for you to interpret the art, because art is subjective. What you see, I may not see. What I see, you may not see, right? And so, but I do this in a way that I like to make it very story driven, and so I hope that you guys are enjoying this process. All right, so yeah, with our original, he's sitting out. It's a guy sitting out by himself. Also with the cup, back to the cup. As I was researching for the Four of Wands, I was actually thinking about doing a jumping of the broom ceremony, right? And I think I talked about this a couple episodes ago. But when I was researching sort of the origins, because I want to make sure that as I'm gathering information and I'm researching different customs and different rituals and things like that, that I know exactly what it is that I'm doing and why I'm adding it to an image. So as I was researching that, I came across some additional information that said that in some cultures, when a woman and a man is getting married, the woman offers the man a drink, right? A palm wine or whatever the drink is, and that is how they announce that they're officially married. So I wanted to add that implication into this. So maybe this is a marriage proposal. I don't know. But I do know that within the next card, there's a little bit of emotional turmoil, because with the fives, if we're going in sequence, the fives tend to deal with a little bit of conflict. So we don't know, that might add to the story. I don't know, but I do enjoy being able to again write these stories and sort of come up with scenarios to put my characters in. And I also like being able to add elements from different cards across the board, right? So we're using the armor from the Knight of Cups, for example, in our new guy, right? I don't know if this is a knight or not, but he's dressed similar color palette. So being able to do that, I feel like creates continuity, because at the beginning of this, I didn't necessarily have a plan, right? So a lot of this is sort of coming along as it goes. Some cards I have in my mind have had in my mind for years. Some of them I'm surprising myself with, right? So that is something that I keep in mind. All right, so let's get back into this. All right, so what I have done so far is, and I'm hoping that the stream is okay, because I'm starting to get a little bit of a warning, but I hope you guys can hear and see me okay. If not, then we will just keep going and do the best that we can. So with this, we've already sort of laid in some of the shadows, and I'll play with that a bit. So I'm working on 3 tones, right? I have sort of a highlight tone, not super bright and crazy or anything like that, but it is sort of the lightest on the spectrum. And I do have a middle tone, sort of an in-between, and I have a slightly darker tone. So I don't necessarily want to go too dark yet, but I do want to add in as much indication of light and shadow as possible before we start to add in like really fine details, such as her eyes, such as the lashes and things like that, her eyebrows. So if I were to turn off the sketch, this is sort of what we're working with so far. And this is a great start. If I can sort of tell where things are without the lines from the sketch shown, that means that I'm doing what I need to do, and that looks great, right? All right, so I'm going to turn the sketch back on, and eventually we'll get to a point where we're not working with the sketch at all. We'll have enough information where we won't need it, but for the time being, we're going to keep that there. I'm going to make sure I'm on the right layer, because I've been doing a lot of talking, right? As a matter of fact, before we go ahead, I'm going to add a title to this layer. I named it Skin Details. When you get to your layers, you can label them whatever it is that you like, but don't be afraid to use them, and don't be afraid to use as many layers as you can possibly use within your program to keep yourself organized. And then you can always merge layers as you go, which is something that I absolutely do, and you guys will see me do that as time progresses. With each image, I'll merge layers. That helps me save on RAM and all of the good things, right? All right, so I'm sort of working in this area where her arm or sort of chest comes to her knee. So I want to make sure that the shadow is the way that I want it to be, and we'll add some middle tone, and then we'll continue to go. Now, as I'm laying this in, what I also may do, and you'll see me do, is sort of exaggerate certain things, right? So I'm not necessarily going for exact, so I don't necessarily want the exact shadow tone, but we'll sort of exaggerate and play with it as we go until I get to what I am comfortable with. So when you're working from reference and things like that, don't be afraid to play with the references, right? Have fun with it. One of the things that I struggled with early on was sort of reaching for perfection, until I got to the point where it was like, okay, I don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. We don't have to reach for perfection. As a matter of fact, to me, the most enticing art to me, the art that I enjoy the absolute most, isn't perfect by any means, right? Some of it is nice when you get like really photorealistic portraits and things like that. It's really, really nice, but I like to see a good brushstroke. Like, I like to see the mistakes. I like to see sort of the hairs from the brushes left on paintings and things like that. So whenever I'm working, whether that's digitally or traditionally, I like to add texture to it. I don't necessarily have to be as perfect as I used to think I did, right? It's not necessary. So I'm going to continue to add shadow and sort of play with this, remembering that some of the information in her chest is going to be translated into her clothing, right? So we don't necessarily have to draw that yet. We'll get to that in a little bit, but we do want to do our best. So what I'm going to do now, because I liked how my hands were looking, the left hand, I'm going to go ahead and add some more of that into her right hand. And I'm actually using the color from the multiply layer, right, to add in these sort of shadows so that we can eventually turn off the sketch layer, see what we have, and then we can continue to work from there and make our adjustments as we see fit. So yeah, I'm really really thankful to be able to work on a dream project. You know what I mean? It really did. It has. I won't say it did. It has taught me a whole lot about myself. It has certainly made me confront a lot of my personal fears and things like that. Even the live streams, like I was afraid to do this for the absolute longest. I think the first live stream, we're coming up on a year. As a matter of fact, we're coming up on a year of live streaming. It'll be a year, June 30th. I did my first live stream on YouTube on June 30th, 2004. I had done a couple live streams prior to on like Instagram and things like that. And in those, I didn't really talk. I just sort of worked, right? And those are always fun. And maybe we'll do some more Instagram live streams. But I was really afraid to do this. I was really afraid to sort of put myself out there. I'm typically, or prior to getting used to it, I was typically very uncomfortable with drawing in front of people, because I think the expectation is if you can draw, it's supposed to be perfect, like right out the gate. But that's not necessarily the reality of it. The reality of it is that all art goes through multiple phases, right? It's not always perfect. You don't always get that very polished, finished look out the gate. You know what I mean? It does take time. It does take progress. You do have to, there's a process that it has to go through. And so I was really afraid to show that process, right? I was afraid to be vulnerable in that way. But now that I've gotten over it, like I love live streaming, and especially like the Wednesday streams, man. I like those so much because again, I'm going so long and I'm getting a whole lot done, and I love to see you guys in the Wednesday streams as well. So I don't talk as much, so I don't do any explanation, but it's sort of, you know, more of the co-working stream. So I love hearing what you guys are working on and studying and doing all of those things. And I actually love having guests on. So we've had a couple of guests over the last year or so. I did an interview with Zajay Richardson, who is a deck creator. She is also is the host of the podcast Dots in Space Time, which I fingers crossed she'll call her deck that, because I think that's such a great name. Dots in Space Time. We also had Sam and Leon, which was always fun, where we talked a lot more about tips and tricks and things like that when it comes to digital artwork. And both Sam Lee and Draw Sketchbook You as well. Hey, Black Z2, so happy to see you. You guys, I was able to sort of, child, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh, you guys have inspired me to show more of the process of what it takes to be a digital artist, just sort of using the program, because I think I've been in it so long. Like I got my first tablet, I think I want to say 2007. It was somewhere between 2006 and 2006 or 7, one of them 2 years. I was still in college, right? So I left college 2008. So 2006 or 7, I had gotten my first tablet, and so I've been in it for a very long time, right? And so I think sometimes when we get so used to doing a thing, we sort of take things for granted, and we forget that there are beginners on this path, right? So one thing that I love to do is to be able to share some of the some of the sort of tips that I've learned along the way. Now, of course, now since 2008, there are so many resources and things like that. And if I can, come up with some or find some that I can share, then I'm more than happy to do that, because I was a beginner at one point, and at that time there weren't very many resources at all. There were like a few people here and there putting out portraits. We were all drawing in Photoshop at the time, and at that time Photoshop wasn't a subscription. It was like you buy it right out, or you pirated it. For some people got the bootleg version. That is their business. You know what I mean? No harm in that. Get it how you got to get it. But we all drew sort of in Photoshop, and so there weren't even very many options in terms of programming and how to programming for digital artwork. Photoshop was nice because you are able to do a lot of the post-production stuff in Photoshop as well. So after I finish something, if I want to sort of tweak or add gradient maps and all that, it was a lot easier for me to do, because I guess I was just more used to it in Photoshop, I find, than it is for me to do it in Clip Studio. The capabilities are there in Clip Studio. It is just something that I do after the fact, right? So I'll take the image from here, I'll take it into Affinity Designer, which is the equivalent to Adobe Illustrator. From there, I'll do all of my post-production things, such as color correcting, such as adding gradient maps and noise and all of that sort of thing. I do that in post-production. So if you all are interested, maybe I'll show you the process of that. It's really quick and easy at this point because after doing, I'm at 38 cards, so after doing 38 cards plus all of the other work that I've done over the years, I sort of have a template, right? I have a sort of a routine and a way that I do it, and I can knock it out in like 5 minutes or so. We get it done and it's over with. But if you guys would like to see that, I'm more than happy to share that process as well. So yeah, I think I went to school for graphic design. I'm not in love with graphic design. I do enjoy it from time to time. I do much more enjoy illustration and traditional art and painting and portraits and all that kind of things, which is why I share most of that, right? But having sort of that experience, I worked in graphic design as well. So I worked as a graphic designer for many years before sort of leaning more into the illustration and the fine art. But I do have the skill set, right? So that has come in handy. It continues to come in handy quite frequently to this day, you know. So being able to knock out the design part of this, it's fairly simple for me to do. I think I had designed the logo for this shortly after I came up with the name. It came up with the name around the second card, so I'm going to say back in November, because the second card was Justice, and it was one that I had completed pretty early on in the process. I did not have a name though when I first started. I did not have a name, and I did not have a set path. I had no idea what I was going to do, right? I had no sort of theme in mind or anything like that. It didn't take much time for that to come around, but it did come a little bit later than me sort of knowing right out the gate what it was. I didn't know. I just knew that I wanted to get this project done. I knew this was something that I wanted to do, and so I just went for it. I started it. I jumped in 10 toes down. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, how I was going to achieve it, who I was going to market it to. I just knew that there was art that I wanted to create, and so I went after it, right? I remember when I was a little girl, and this is what I was thinking about when I did this. When I was a little girl, I was in a daycare day camp in my hometown. There's one specific day camp that everybody went to. I don't care who it was. Everybody went to this particular daycare day camp, right? I ain't gonna name it because I don't want to put my business out there, but everybody went there, right? And so in this daycare day camp, they had football, they had cheerleading, they had all these things. So I remember very vividly, I don't know how old I was, maybe 6 or 7, something like that. I was real young. But I had a friend, me and her played all the time on the playground. And as we played, they would have like the cheerleaders cheering, right? So all the girls, if we weren't cheerleaders, we all knew the cheers. We would watch them cheers, and we would like do it along with them on the side, right? And so me and her would talk about, man, I wish we could do this, and third, right? Talk about it, but never like was about it. So they were cheering, and one day my friend was like, you know what, I'm gonna join in, and she just jumped out there. And next thing you know, she was a cheerleader. And so that's sort of something that stuck with me after all of these years, and I was a little girl, right? That's sort of how I approach jumping into something new. She didn't ask for permission to do that, right? She didn't ask her mama if she could do it. She didn't ask teachers. She got right in line with the rest of the cheerleaders, and to this day, I believe she is a dancer. I think I saw her online recently. She is a dancer to this day. So she jumped out there at 6, 7, 8 years old and went for what she wanted. And so that was the thing that came up for me when I started this particular project. I was like, I know nobody who's doing this, right? I see people, I have artists that I admire. I was watching different decks be developed and created and all of that at that time, but I didn't personally know anybody who was doing it. I was just sort of watching other people do it and watch it happen. And so I was like, you know what? I'm already tired of the work that I'm doing. I'm not necessarily happy with it. I'm going to jump out there and do it. And so that's how I approached it. I didn't care. I was like, I ain't asking nobody permission. Of course I was nervous. Of course I was afraid. There was certainly, and we talked about this earlier, definitely a level of fear that came with it, because of course I was used to, or my audience at the time was used to me posting a certain type of artwork at that time. But I was like, okay, I had gotten to a point where I was like, I'm putting this off. And something else that was happening was, because I really wanted to do it, I believe at that time, this was around 2018, sort of most of 2019, right? I was still doing commission work, which of course I love doing specifically portraits. Not all commissions I like, but I love doing portraits. So I was doing lots of portraits, doing lots of commission work, doing lots of conventions, and so I was really out there heavily. I wasn't necessarily happy with the work that I was doing, and I was trying to find a way out of it so that I could fund the tarot project, right? So I was like, okay, well, if I get this grant, then I can start. Or if I have all these ducks in a row, then I can start. If I could do this, then I can start. You know, it was always something, some kind of contingent that was keeping me from starting this project. And then it got to a point where no matter what I tried, I failed. No matter what I was doing, it was falling through night and day. And when I tell you I was losing it, right? I was really having a tough go at it. I was really having a tough time coming to terms with the fact that I have something that I want to do, and I'm afraid to do it, and I need to do it because everything else is sort of falling through and it's pushing me in this direction, but for whatever reason I'm resisting it. And so when I stopped resisting and when I actually went out there for it, then everything started to fall into place. Right? And that has happened several times over the course of these 6 years of working on it, because of course it, for a lot of people, it doesn't take 6 years. But what would happen is I would get on a roll, right? I would be putting out cards left and right, and then I would get a project, and I was like, okay, well, cool. Since, you know, I still have to eat and still have to live, I still have to buy different things, let me go ahead and take this project, and that'll help do this. And so I'll get all distracted, you know, from projects. One is cool, but now I'm chasing the projects. Now it's like, okay, I got to figure out marketing, and I got to figure this out, and I got to figure that out. And I was starting to get distracted and starting to sort of wane off of the path. And then I would get the same disillusioned feeling, right? Just like this girl here, she's staring at her 3 cups. She's disillusioned with whatever she's disillusioned with, whether it's relationships, whether it's her options, whether it is her life, whether it's this thing that she has in front of her. She was sort of over it, you know what I mean? And so once I sort of got back on the path, then again, everything started to fall into place. So that's sort of been the experience over this last year of actually focusing on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. You know, of course, I do accept projects. So if you have a project that you think I would be perfect for, I'm very happy to talk to you about that. But that's not necessarily my priority. The priority is to go ahead and get this done so I can get it out to the people, so that I can get these ideas out of my mind, right? So that I can finish this dream project and see it to completion and do all of those things. So that happens. Sometimes when it's meant for you to do something and you sort of resist it, you're trying to swim upstream, life will throw you all kinds of monkey wrenches. You know what I mean? Life will throw you all kinds of obstacles, and you have to be aware enough to say, okay, this is happening. Maybe I should stop and examine why this is happening to me. You know what I mean? Why am I experiencing these things? Why am I going through this at this time? And then you pivot and make the adjustments in your life so that you're able to live the way that you want to live. So that's where I'm at now, right? Sort of pivoting and making those adjustments and, you know, going with it. Now, it can be stressful. The older you get, I feel like the more stressful it is. When I was younger, I was, you know, it was easier because I had far less responsibility, right? I had far less people to, you know, disappoint and all of that. You know, you go through all of that. Even living your dream, even doing all of that, you still go through that as a human, right? But, you know, sometimes you have to sort of pour into yourself first. You have to sort of bet on yourself, and you have to go after what you want. So what I've done here is I'm just sort of beefing up my highlights to give her texture. I'm going to use my smudge brush to sort of blend some of this in. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, I'm not chasing perfection. I'm just sort of going after the ideas, and then I can come back and clean it up if I like. Because she's sitting outside, I might want her to feel a little glossy, right? It's summertime. We're about to hit the summer solstice. It's hot in Memphis. I live in Memphis, Tennessee. It's hot, right? And so maybe she's hot. She doesn't have on very many clothes. So I want her skin to reflect the environment that she's in, right? Just like with my 4 of Pentacles, I want him to reflect the environment that he's in. So I'm just sort of adding in these highlights. And again, I'm using my 3D model as a reference, as sort of a roadmap for where to put certain things in. And so I do that just like this, and I'll play around and move things around as much as possible. But I really like the way that this is coming together. Now again, I am playing with sort of back and forth colors, and I'll adjust things as I go. Again, not reaching for perfection by any means. just sort of laying in things, and then I can come back to it. And so what I'm going to do is I just kind of go back and forth. I color something in, and then I'll grab my smudge brush and sort of smoothen it out, see what I have. And then what I'll do now is go ahead and turn off my sketch just so I can see how I'm looking. If I can start sort of being able to tell where different things are, like I can tell here she has a wrist, which is really nice, but in this area her forearm is sort of bleeding into her bicep, right? So we want to make sure that I add some contrast here so that that stands out the way that I want it to, right? So again, we have to have that, or this is where exaggerating comes in, at sort of exaggerating colors, because if I look at my reference model, the arm does sort of seem to bleed into the other, and we only see a difference because we have this orange line running through from her finger to her elbow. So we have to exaggerate that, and we sort of have to play with light and shadow where we need to, so we don't have to do exactly what the model is showing, but we want to just use it as a guide, right? We want to use it as a guide. But so far she looks great. The color is coming in really well, and I'll zoom out just to sort of see what she looks like in the greater sort of scheme of things. Now, the background I have pretty blue, but I want it to be just about as green as this is. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time drawing individual leaves and things like that. I have done that. I think I did it with the Queen of Pentacles as well as the Hermit card, where he's sitting under a tree, and because it's so zoomed in, you know, I wanted to articulate the leaves and everything looks very crisp and clean, like he's actually in that environment. In this particular card, I don't think I want to go that far into detail. I don't want it to be as rendered as my reference image. I'll do something very similar to what I've done with the Knight of Cups, and I'll show you that here in just a second, just to give an indication of where leaves and things are. I also did this with the Two of Swords as well, where this is where the specialty brushes really come in handy, because I'm not drawing individual leaves, I'm not drawing individual blades of grass. I sort of use the tools that I have at my disposal to lay those in, and then I can expand on whatever it is that I want to expand on. So I'll show you that in just a bit, and then I think we're going to wrap it up for now. Here we are. So okay, so like with this one, with the Knight of, what is this, a Knight of Cups, what I did was sort of laid in the indication of grass and things like that. Now here's a little bit of color theory for my artists out there. Now we read this as sort of a green bush, right? But if I was to select this color, it's actually blue. It's quite blue, right? But because of the way that we sort of played with the background and things like that, we sort of read it as, our minds read it as green, but it's actually a very blue color. That'll happen a little bit here, and I'll show you guys let me show you the Two of Swords, because that one has some really good environmental details in it as well. And for me, portraits are my absolute strength. Like, I can draw a face blindfold, I'm pretty sure. I love painting portraits and being able to capture facial features and things like that. But when it comes to environments, that is the area that I don't want to say I struggle with, but like I absolutely need more practice in. So whenever I get the opportunity to do one such as this one, and such as the Two of Swords, it's a lot of fun. It does become a little stressful because it's something I'm not super duper comfortable with yet. I do sort of slip into, okay, well, this isn't quite as perfect as I would like, right? But again, we sort of have to allow ourselves to pivot and to make those happy accidents and to sort of learn along the way. So I have created some really neat environments over the course of this particular deck. And then while that loads up, I'll show you a couple. Let's see if we can see some in our in the cards here. So if I was to, let's see, it's gonna play. There it is. Okay, so if I were to look at, not the Knight of Pentacles. The Knight of Pentacles is one I actually want to go back and revisit. But I want to say the Strength card has a really nice environment to it. Of course, the Queen of Pentacles, because I articulated each one of those leaves and it took such a long time, but it came out really, really nice. But like, let me go back just a bit. If I were to go back to like the Strength card, right? So that's over to the bottom left-hand side. That's really, so that one was one I was able to sort of skirt by, right? Because I knew enough about what I wanted to draw that I was able to sort of just make it work. And then we have the Hermit, of course, which has all of these like individual leaves, and I was able to sort of get away with blurring, just doing shapes in the background and blurring them out. So that worked with the Empress. This was one that I had gotten pretty close, like dangerously close to the source, like the reference that I had. But because I had such a great reference, I was just able to sort of make it work, right? But as soon as this one loads, I will show you. So we'll let this play through again so you guys can see the rest of the cards. Now, of course, this is not all 38 of the cards. This is a good chunk of them, though, that we've completed, that I've completed over the course of, it'll be 6 years in November, right? So it's definitely been a process. It's been a process. So if you are an artist, here's a warning, right? If you are an artist, I've seen this conversation come up a couple times on threads where artists are being approached to create decks. Now, with AI being a thing, for a lot of people, that's probably going to be the route for some too, because it's going to be a little more affordable, a little more approachable. But if you're an artist and someone is approaching you for creating their tarot deck, in addition to all of the things that come with commission work, right? So your revisions, your sketches, your communication, all of that. You also have to take into account that you're doing 78 cards. So that's 78 individual illustrations. If you were doing this as a book, so let's say you're doing a picture book and you're doing 78 picture books, then you would charge, typically people charge by pages. So however many pages, however many spot illustrations, however many full page illustrations, however many spreads, whatever the case is. So if you're being approached with the opportunity to create a tarot deck, do not sell yourself short, okay? Now, it's taken me 6 years to do this. It may not take you 6 years. I hope that it does not, right? But it is a very lengthy process. It is not something that, unless your style is super quick and you're super quick, and some people are like that. For instance, I was listening to Biddy Tarot's podcast. She was interviewing, and I forget the girl's name, but I think it was Eleanor or something. I'm not real sure. But she was interviewing the person who illustrated her first deck, which was Everyday Tarot. And that style was really easy, flat colors. I think it was a 3-color deck, super flat, not a whole lot of details, but it's a very beautiful deck. It only took her 6 months. But for some people, it takes a whole lot longer. Some of the decks that I've watched come into fruition have taken people 2 to 3 years. You know what I mean? Some people are able to knock it out within a year. It's taken me a long time. Right? So don't sell yourself short in terms of how much you charge. Make sure that you are getting a fair rate for it. And to understand the differences in contracts, make sure that you are working in a contract that you are comfortable with, right? So that it is beneficial both to you and your client. And go through all of that. With contracts, we have 2 different kinds. You have a licensing contract and you have a work for hire. Work for hire says that whatever I create belongs to the person who is commissioning me to do it. But by default, if it's not a work for hire contract, by default, whoever creates the work owns the copyright to that. So you may be saying, well, what is so important? If they pay me to do the artwork, why do I have to have copyrights? Think of it in terms of a musician having their masters. It's the exact same concept, right? So with a masters, if I create a song and I own my masters, I can then go to Pepsi and say, hey, Pepsi, I created this song. I want to license this song out for you to use in your next set of commercials. And so even though you've created that work, you can then benefit after, however your contract is worked out, you can then benefit from it so that you are steady eating, so that you can pass on wealth to your children, and so on and so forth. So that's very important to note. Now, for some projects, such as for me, when I do branding packages and logos and things like that, I don't have to have copyrights for that, right? So I typically work in a hybrid contract where I give over the copyrights, but I do retain the right to use whatever I create for my advertising, and that is not limited to just putting it on my website. Like if I did a book where I am, doing all of my art in retrospective, I can do that, right? So I can continue to benefit from it, but they own copyrights to that. So when you're doing contracts with clients and things like that, that is something that you want to take into consideration. And we can do a whole other episode about that. I think we talked about it a couple times in some live streams back. I have no idea which one. There have been so many, but if that is something that you're interested in, I'm more than happy to go into that, because it took me a lot of bumping my head to learn and to come to a better understanding of how that works. And of course, you do want to be fair to both parties. The way that I structure my contracts, I'm very, very fair. I believe fairer than a lot of people are, right? But I'm also realistic. There are some things I just don't need, right? And some things, of course, I know because of my own rights that I have a right to create or to keep copyrights for certain things. But anyway, I digress. Now, this is the Two of Swords. So this is one of those instances where I was able to sort of play with the environment and play with creating sort of a scene and use specialty brushes. Now, of course, all of the trees in the background I did on my own, but like the bush, I was able to use a specialty brush for that. The bushes and the grasses and things like that in the foreground, I was able to use specialty brushes for, and so that helped me sort of cut out having to draw individual leaves and things like that. So it saved me a whole lot of time. All right, so I think that is going to be our stream for now. Now, again, I'm coming up on a 1-year anniversary of streaming. So I think it does not, our 1-year anniversary falls on the 29th and not the 30th. So what I would like to do, so I want y'all to stick around, and I'll announce this more as soon as we get around to it, because I got to figure out the rules, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a giveaway for the 1-year anniversary of live streaming, because I've, again, this is a testament of me overcoming my fears and sort of being very vulnerable as someone who is a Cancer. So I will hide in my shell in a heartbeat. But just sort of putting my artwork out there, and I want to show my appreciation to all of you guys, again, whether you're watching this live or the replay, for you guys for sticking around with me and to sort of, and asking me questions and telling me hey in the chat, and checking in with me and emailing me. And I love all of that. It makes my heart smile so much, because I'm just I'm just a regular old person, right? So around the 29th, probably on the 29th, I will announce a giveaway. What I'm thinking is, I don't know, we'll see. I ain't gonna put it out there yet, because I ain't figured it out yet. But it will be a giveaway of some kind. So around the 29th, that'll be mark the 1-year anniversary of us live streaming here every Sunday with not bring your own project, child, with Paint With Me Live. So I hope to see you guys. I hope you guys stick around for these. Now, if you like a little more chill live stream, if you would just like to watch me work, if you want to work with me and we listen to the music, now it's usually the same playlist, but I like it. You know what I mean? So if you want to come and hang out with me on Wednesday, I will be working on the Four of Pentacles. I'm going to be finishing that up. I do not want to take that into another week, so I'm going to be finishing up the Four of Pentacles next Wednesday. So if you would like to come and co-work with me, whether you're studying, you're co-working, you're cleaning your house, or whatever it is you want to do, and you want to play me in the background and we just vibe out together, I would love to see you Wednesday at 12:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's 1:45 p.m. Eastern, and any time zone after that, just sort of subtract however many hours you gotta subtract. I have no idea, child. But I hope to see you there. And then next Sunday we'll be back with the Four of Cups. So I'll probably have my main character done. Again, I'm looking at this now sort of zoomed out without the sketch on. She looks good, right? She looks really good. So I'll give her some details and we'll sort of move along this particular image as well. So until next time, I hope you all have a happy, creative, and prosperous day, and happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there. It is 4:44 on the dot, so that is a good auspicious time. Shout out to Black Z2, thank you so much for driving by. Shout out to Draw Sketchbook, I love seeing you here. And PL, thank you so much, you guys, for coming by. If I missed you in the chat, if I missed you in the comments, please tell me how you're in the comments. Like, I want to know that you're here. I want to know who's watching. I would love to see you. And if you have something that you would like to come on and chat with me about, I would love to have you on. The platform is open to you. I would love to hear about your project, your hopes, your dreams, all of the things, all of the good things. And so until next time, I hope you all have a happy, creative, and prosperous day. And again, happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there. I hope you have the love and the day that you deserve. And so until next time, peace.